All right. So we're going to start this one off with a bit of a bold statement around machine as a service. You could say that machine as a service prevents the best OEMs from losing orders due to price because we know it's a price competitive market out there, things along those lines. So before we go into that and back that statement up, Mike, why do the best OEMs lose orders due to price?
So, oftentimes what I've seen in this industry, especially, in the past 20 years, is that it's become increasingly competitive. There's more and more machine builders that are offering more and more options for various different machine styles. And it's getting competitive. There's more and more competitors coming in from overseas. And so that's great news for the end users who have more options on the one hand, but on the other hand, it creates more complexity in the market, right? And so right now, the one thing that everybody can easily measure and easily understand is the price you pay for the machine, right? And so in a competitive market where you have lots of choices, you're presented with different options, you're hearing all the salespeople make the various different commitments about their capabilities on the machine, and what they can do for you. And it's really the end user that needs to sort through all of that and figure out which one is the best value proposition for their business, right? And oftentimes it's easiest just to kind of default to looking at the price of the machine, right? And that is not healthy either for the end user or for the OEM community that supports those end users. And the reason why is because the price of the machine is probably the least impactful metric in terms of the value of the asset to the end user organization over its life cycle. It does not include things like the cost of maintenance, right? The inevitable spares and repairs that are going to be needed on that machine. The cost of downtime if that machine isn't achieving its production performance. And these matters are made significantly worse if the OEM you decide to do business with doesn't have the post-sales support capabilities to ensure speedy resolution of the problems that you inevitably will face, right? So the best OEMs in the market have great technology up front, but bundled in that price that they're charging for the machine includes their capabilities to deliver at a cost-effective rate all of the support and services that asset's going to need over its life cycle. The problem is it all boils down into one price, and it's very hard to quantify and compare apples to apples across multiple different quotes from multiple different vendors. All right, compare and contrast that with machine as a service, where you're rolling all of those support services, those life cycle costs into a single price, right? You're beginning to talk not just about the cost of the machine, but the cost of production on that machine over some defined period of time. At which point it becomes much easier to compare the commitments that OEM A makes versus OEM B, right? OEM A might be able to sell you a machine outright for 30% less than OEM B, but they may not have the same ability to respond to a downtime event. And end users know one catastrophic downtime event can more than cover or lose more money than they ever saved on that upfront capital purchase. The value of production is what really matters in these discussions. Unfortunately, that's a difficult number to get after in the traditional models for capital equipment purchasing.
Well, maybe can I play devil's advocate for a second? We hear about total cost of ownership as well. Is there a way for OEMs to articulate that, saying, "Hey, this is why my price is higher because of this, this, and this," or are people just jaded on that message, or what do you think the issue is there?
Yeah, no, total cost of ownership has been kind of the in vogue way to sell these kinds of assets for many years, right? And it's the right thinking. And so the smart OEMs have for years worked to substantiate why they believe their technology is going to prove to be more value over time, right? But even though the sales message has evolved, right, the purchasing mechanisms have not, right?
Mm.
We're still using purchasing mechanisms and models that were developed during Industry 1.0, the original industrial revolution, right? Equipment is fundamentally being bought and sold in the same manner as it always has been. But here we are in an Industry 4.0 world with all this rich data about the performance of the asset that can be tracked and monitored and used to inform and validate and confirm that total cost of ownership, not just at the time you make the sale with the hope that it'll come true, but can be distributed as those milestones, as those metrics are achieved in the production environment, right? Again, it shifts the concept of, trying to convince my customer that I have the lowest total cost of ownership, right? To standing behind your total cost of ownership over time and taking some of that risk on as the OEM because you are so confident that your organization has the capability to deliver, right? So compare and contrast two OEMs, one without the support organization that may be shipping in technology from overseas that has limited ability to support it, but can make promises very easily on throughput and uptime and quality, right? And the other organization that doesn't just make promises, they have a financial stake in their ability to achieve those promises over the life of the contract, right? Now, the one you're going to be able to buy for less money, the other one will cost you more in the long run, but only in a scenario where it's achieving the desired outcome. So does it cost you more or does it make you more is really the question, right? If you can afford the downtime and you can afford the risk that the machine is unavailable and you can afford the risk that it may not be able to actually achieve the throughput requirements that were quoted, right? Then yes, you may save money by buying a lower cost machine with less support infrastructure. But if your goal is really focused on achieving performance results because that's what impacts your bottom line, then a shift towards de-risking these investments by working with your OEM to define a metrics-based, a performance-based machine as a service agreement on top of your capital equipment purchase or alongside of it, right, is a very effective mechanism to move forward confidently, especially with advanced technology where there's more questions around ability to support, right? To move confidently, taking advantages of the operational efficiencies and productivities that new automation technology provide in a situation where you are really managing the risk of that by working with your OEM to team together to ensure that everybody's on the same page.
I mean, one of the biggest things that jumped out within all of that good information is that machine as a service is ultimately a program that makes that total cost of ownership message, not even message, it just makes total cost of ownership a reality because that's what machine as a service is based on in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, right now I like to say people like to sell total cost of ownership, but what they bill you for is the machine delivered.
Yeah. Oh, great summary on that. Well, as we shift kind of to the second half of this, what I'm curious around is, we made that bold statement at the start that machine as a service prevents OEMs from losing orders due to price. So, let's back that up a little bit. How does machine as a service, how does that program make it so that the best OEMs out there aren't losing orders due to
Yeah,
price?
yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, we've got OEMs that we partner with today, whose challenge is they believe and they're correct in believing that they offer a value to their clients that is better than some of the alternatives in the market, right? And their machines are 30, sometimes 40 or 50% more expensive if you just compare spec sheet to spec sheet, right? The and so the opportunity for those OEMs is to say, look, I can sell you the machine if all you want is the machine. I can sell you the machine for 70 cents on the dollar or 60 cents on the dollar compared to what my sell price actually is, right? But I also want to be paid for my ability to service that machine, my ability to support that machine, my ability to warrant the performance of that machine over time. right? Today, that's all implicit, right? Or assumed to be contained in that spec sheet. But of course, if there's no recourse, if the machine doesn't, how good is that guarantee? It reminds me of, and Chris, you're a movie buff. It reminds me of it reminds me of the line from that Chris Farley movie. I believe it's Black Sheep, right? Right. Anybody can stamp a guarantee on a side of a box, right? But do you remember that one? Maybe
I
you'll.
know I do. I do. I was going to say it's Tommy Boy you're thinking of, but Black
It
Sheep
is
and
Tommy
Tommy
Boy.
Boy,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
two are so much alike. They're
yeah.
so much
Shit,
alike.
you're right. It is Tommy Boy, right? I can stamp. Anybody can stamp guarantee on the side of a box, right? But do you really want to stick your head up a butcher's ass? As I believe the punchline.
We're keeping that, just so you know, right?
Yeah. The so when you start breaking down that discussion about total cost of ownership and putting dollars to it, right? That's what machine as a service is uniquely capable of doing, right? Machine as a service, a lot of people think it's a different version of a lease. It can be that, right? But it's not exclusively that, right? It's a different way to bill your customer so that instead of talking about and promising total cost of ownership while selling them a capital asset, you're leveling the playing field so that what you charge for the capital asset is really kind of irrelevant, because what they're paying for is total cost of ownership over time. So it may be that instead of charging, I'll make up numbers, nice round ones to make it easy. Instead of charging $1 million for the machine, because your support costs and the costs of your high quality organization that's in the best position to guarantee performance costs more, right? Service departments cost money. Having the resources costs money. Great applications engineers that evaluate their customers' need cost a lot of money for OEMs, right? And they have to put that right now into the price of the machine. If you can separate that, charge 70 cents on the dollar, and add to that machine a performance contract that pays an annuity where the client is only paying when they're getting the results that the OEM committed, that's good for the OEM's business because it helps them create a revenue stream for that high quality support that they absolutely want to provide. It helps them support their customer, and it does so in a way that their customer feels like they're getting real value for that support. They're not just paying more for a machine, right? And it helps them resist the urge of saying, hey, I'm going to buy this machine for 70 cents on the dollar because they tell me I can do the same thing that you tell me you can do, and I can't tell the difference between who to believe, right? Especially in today's day and age where people are changing jobs so often at all companies, including end users. It used to be that reputation and the history and commitment to your customer was the thing that drove your business. That was your equity. They trusted you because they worked with you before. But with so much going on in the market, so many people changing jobs, that is not as valuable as it used to be. And so you lose opportunities and people make the improper decision because they only see the headline number, which is the upfront capital. We think machine as a service changes that dynamic, which is why we think the best OEMs in the market are the ones that are most eager, because they're the ones that have the most to risk because they're losing orders they should rightfully gain because they're in the best position to deliver for those customers. But what they're really doing is pricing too high on the upfront to contain all that value. But then they're creating a market opportunity for lower cost, lower support level alternatives. And those guys are going to move up market because by supporting those customers and they're going to start to learn more and more what they can do, and you're essentially creating more competition. If you can hit the price point that the market says, the lowest price point in the market for the upfront capital, and then connect your margin and profitability to the service side of the equation, we think it's a very good formula for the best OEMs in the world.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, just, I was going to summarize it the same way you said. I mean, if I'm an OEM, what machine as a service does, I can sell a machine at cost and then make all my profit on the performance afterwards. Is that
Yes.
correct in saying?
Yeah, and again, I'm not here to prescribe the deal terms, right?
Sure.
Machine as a service is a configurable solution. What differentiates it from anything that came before it is really the idea that you can connect the financial transactions to the performance of the asset over time. That's what defines machine as a service. Now, how customers use that, your example is a very good one. I'm going to sell the machines to cover my cost of goods sold, but my business is going to be a service oriented organization that will profit from my ability to help my customers achieve results. Right. So to make that conversion into a service oriented organization, we really think helps the best OEMs in the world, the ones with the best domain expertise, that know their customers the best, that have the best applications engineering, that have the best service departments, right? It's figuring out the right business model to support that, that business. And we think machine as a service is uniquely positioned to help that transition. I would say compare and contrast that to selling the machine and then asking them to buy a warranty, right? Where it's very difficult to understand what they're warranting, whose responsibility it is, et cetera, et cetera. It's the right idea, and many OEMs have been moving that direction. But it's a difficult product to sell because it's very hard to substantiate the value of it unless you connect it to actual provable outcomes on the machine. And that's where machine as a service, again, really focuses.
Love it. Love it. Connecting price to provable outcomes. I mean, it's everything that when people talk about industry 4.0 or connected enterprise, it substantiates that with dollars is what it does. It turns data into dollars. Mike, as we wrap up, obviously people can find out more about this at steamchain.io. Call to action for the audience out there today.
If you're a great OEM in the market and struggling to put together business models on post-sale services, we'd love to talk to you about what we can do with machine as a service to help both become more competitive in terms of how you price your capital equipment by separating the performance contract that really is intended to support your investments in your service department and help you deliver true value and total cost of ownership to your client base. We work with many OEMs in the packaging industry, as well as material handling, automated assembly, oil and gas. There's myriad different industries where we think these models work well. So if you guys are selling industrial equipment and want to learn more, please check us out. Give us a call. We'd be happy to consult.
Love that. For the OEMs out there that truly want to charge based on total cost of ownership, as we've said, up until now, total cost of ownership sales messaging has evolved, but the purchasing mechanisms have not. Well, machine as a service is a purchasing mechanism to tie performance to dollars. Thanks for listening, everyone.